I was born into war. Not just little fights over cattle or farmland, but real, burning, wounded war. My kingdom, Nkam, I had been fighting the northern raiders since before I was even old enough to hold a spear. People said I was cursed because my mother died the night I was born. They whispered that I came out with the sound of a drum echoing in the sky, thunder rolling like the ancestors were warning everyone. They weren't wrong about the drum part. In my palace sat the war drum of Nkam, a massive thing carved from Iroko wood, with cowhide stretched tight, decorated with cowries, blood, and soot. It wasn't just an instrument, it was the heartbeat of the kingdom. Whenever danger came, the queen, always the queen, because in our line women carried the crown, would beat the drum herself. One strike meant enemies were near. Two meant the army should gather. Three meant blood would flow. When my mother died, the council crowned me at 16. Yeah, a teenager, already wearing the crown, already holding the weight of a kingdom that smelled of fire and iron. People bowed to me, but half of them thought I was too young, too angry, too hungry for vengeance. Maybe they were right. The first time I touched the war drum, I remember my hands shaking. The hide was cold. My people were kneeling in the courtyard, spears and shields raised. I beat it once, twice, 3 times. The sound echoed across the valley. That day, I became Queen Amara the Fierce. That day, the blood of war stained my name. But you don't want to hear about all my battles. This isn't a story about how many enemies I cut down, or how many nights I spent awake sharpening my sword. This is about the thing I never expected, a love. Yet, I know. A queen of war talking about love sounds almost funny. But it happened. And it happened with the one person I was supposed to hate most. It started during the 3rd year of my reign. The northern raiders had grown bold, sneaking into villages at night, stealing goats, burning huts, dragging away women and children. My council was breathing down my neck. Strike back harder, they told me. Beat the drum. Show no mercy. So I did. We marched north, across the dry plains, to meet them head-on. Spears clashed, shields cracked, blood soaked the dust. My army fought like lions, and in the middle of that chaos, we captured him. General Keto. I didn't know his name at first. All I saw was this tall man, chained, dragged into my tent by 2 of my warriors. His face was streaked with blood and dust, but his eyes, ancestors, his eyes burned like fire. Not fear. Not arrogance. Just steady, like he'd already accepted death but wouldn't bow his head to me. Here is their leader, my captain spat, shoving him forward. Shall we cut off his head now, my queen? I looked at him, this enemy, this man who had probably ordered raids that killed my people. My blood boiled. My fingers twitched toward my sword. But then he spoke. Kill me if you want, he said, his voice deep, calm. But know this, your war will never end. Cut off my head, and another will rise. Spill more blood, and you will drown in it yourself. The tent went silent. Even my warriors shifted uneasily. Who was this man to speak to me like that? And yet, I couldn't shake his words. I ordered him thrown into the prison hut, tied but alive. That night, I didn't sleep. His voice kept ringing in my head. Days passed. I should have ordered his execution, but something in me refused. I went to see him myself. Not as a queen, but as a woman curious about an enemy who didn't beg for his life. He sat there, chained, but proud. He didn't spit insults. He didn't curse. Instead, he asked me a question I'll never forget. Queen Amara, he said, do you beat the war drum because you want peace, or because you love the sound of war? That cut me deeper than any blade. I wanted to snap back at him, to remind him that his people started this war, that I was only defending my land. But the way he looked at me, not as a monster, not as a goddess, but as a human being, made my voice falter. I should have walked away. But I didn't. Night after night, I found myself returning to that prison hut. At first, we argued. He would say, "Your thirst for vengeance blinds you," and I'd snap, "Your raids made me who I am." But slowly, our words shifted. We started talking about our childhoods, about the rivers we grew up near, about the taste of roasted yams by a fire. He laughed once, a deep, surprising laugh, and I felt my chest tighten in a way no battle ever had. The council noticed my hesitation. They wanted his blood. "The people will not respect you if you show mercy," they warned. "Kill him, and your reign will be feared." But fear wasn't enough for me anymore. Somewhere in the dark of those prison nights, I realized I didn't just see General Keto as an enemy anymore. I saw him as a man, one who carried the same scars of war that I did. And against all reason, all loyalty, all duty, I began to love him. You know when you start doing something you know is dangerous, but you keep telling yourself, "Just one more time." That was me with Keto. I kept visiting him. Every night, like I was sneaking into some forbidden shrine. I'd tell myself I was just checking on the enemy general, making sure he wasn't plotting an escape. But the truth, I wanted to hear his voice. Keto didn't talk like the men in my council. They were always shouting about blood, about honor, about how strength was the only thing that mattered. But him? He spoke softly, like someone who had seen enough killing to know it never really ended. "You think victory is when your enemies are dead," he told me once, his wrists raw from the ropes. "But victory is when your children no longer know the sound of war drums." Those words, they hit me harder than any spear. Because I had never known silence. Not once in my life. My childhood had been the sound of shields clashing, the cries of widows, the drums calling us to fight. And now this man, this enemy, was telling me maybe there was another way. Of course, I didn't let him see how much he was getting to me. I would roll my eyes, scoff, pretend I wasn't listening. But inside, my heart was beating faster every night. Not just from his words, but from the way his eyes softened when he spoke to me. Like I was more than just the fierce queen with blood on her hands. One night, after a long silence, I asked him something I'd never asked anyone. "What would you do if you were me? If you sat on this throne, with everyone expecting you to kill, to conquer?" He looked at me for a long time, then said, "I would listen. Not just to the drum. Not just to the council. But to the whispers of my people. And to my own heart." I almost laughed. Me? A queen listening to my heart? That sounded like weakness. But deep down, I was already doing it. Because my heart kept dragging me back to that prison hut. But the council was watching me closely. They weren't fools. One of my elders, old Chief Mbala, cornered me after a council meeting. His beard was white, his eyes sharp as a hawk's. He leaned close and whispered, "Daughter, mercy is a sweet fruit, but it rots quickly. If you let this man live, your people will see you as weak. And weakness kills queens faster than any spear." I nodded, pretending to agree, but inside I was boiling. Was I truly weak? Or were they too blind to see another path? Things got worse when rumors started spreading. Some of the guards whispered that I was bewitched by the enemy. A few even claimed Keto had cast a spell on me. You know how fast gossip spreads in a palace. By the time it reached the council, they were already planning his execution without asking me. I found out one night when I went to see Keto and noticed the guard outside his hut wouldn't meet my eyes. When I pressed him, he stammered. They say tomorrow, the council will demand his head." My blood ran cold. I stormed into the council chamber, my cloak still dusty from the prison hut. Who dares order the execution of a prisoner without my command? I shouted. My voice cracked through the room like lightning. The elders shifted nervously, but Chief Mbala didn't flinch. He rose slowly, his staff tapping the ground. You grow soft, Amara, he said. The people whisper about you. They wonder why the war drum has been silent. They wonder why the general who burned our villages still breathes. We protect the crown by killing him. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to grab the war drum and beat it until their ears bled. But I just stood there, fists trembling, because part of me knew they were right. Mercy was dangerous. That night, I went to Keto again. I didn't even know why. Maybe because I thought it would be the last time. He looked at me, tired but calm. They are going to kill me, aren't they? I couldn't answer. My throat was too tight. Instead, he smiled faintly. Then let me die knowing something. Tell me, why do you come here, night after night? Why do you risk everything to sit with your enemy? I should have lied. I should have said it was strategy, or pride, or curiosity. But the truth spilled out before I could stop it. Because I don't see you as my enemy anymore, I whispered. Because when I look at you, I don't see a raider or a killer. I see a man who understands me. More than anyone in this palace ever has. His chains clinked as he leaned forward, eyes burning into mine. And when I look at you, Bamara, I don't see a queen of war. I see a woman whose heart is bigger than her drum. I swear, if not for the guards outside, I might have kissed him right then. My whole body was on fire. But reality slammed back like a cold bucket of river water. The council. The people. The war. I left him that night without another word. The next day, the war drum sounded on its own. Not by my hands, by the councils. They had gathered the people in the courtyard, the air thick with anticipation. 3 beats. Execution. I ran out, fury blazing, but by the time I reached the courtyard, the execution platform was already set. Keto was dragged out, bound, but still walking tall. The crowd roared for blood. My elders watched me, waiting for me to prove I was still their fierce queen. My heart hammered louder than the drum. This was the moment. I could raise my hand, give the order, and end Keto's life. The people would cheer, my throne would be safe, and the whispers of weakness would die. Or I could defy them all. Stop! I shouted, my voice echoing through the courtyard. The executioner froze, his blade hovering above Keto's neck. All eyes turned to me. The queen. The drum. The daughter of war. I walked up, my cloak trailing in the dust, and stood before my people. My voice shook at first, but I forced it steady. This man will not die today. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The elders glared daggers at me. He is not our enemy anymore, I continued. Killing him will not end the war. But maybe, listening to him will. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. Then Chief Mbala slammed his staff against the ground. You bring shame to the ancestors. You would trade blood for softness. You would gamble the kingdom on the words of a raider. I turned to face him, my hands clenched. No. I would gamble it on the hope that we are more than war. That we can be more than vengeance. And just like that, I knew I had crossed a line I could never uncross. Keto's life was spared that day. But it also meant the war between me and my own council had begun.